must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news making headline across the continent of Africa. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and it is a pleasure to have you on board. And we have a lot to talk about this afternoon, about 16 minutes to 1 p.m. here in Nairobi. So I'll be very quick, and we'll start with Nigeria, where Nigeria's Defense Minister Bashir Magashi has urged citizens to be alert in the wake of rising attacks on villages by armed gangs. He told journalists that people should not be cowards when confronted by gunmen who at times carry few ammunition. The minister's comments came a day after gunmen killed a pupil and abducted 27 other children in a night-time raid at a boarding school in north-central Niger State. Now, 3 members of staff and 12 of their relatives were also abducted, according to State Governor Abubakar Sani Bello. On Monday, about 20 people who were returning from a wedding ceremony were abducted after an attack on their bus in Niger State. Their fate is still very unclear. And we come back to East Africa. We go to Tanzania, and specifically to Zanzibar, where the deceased vice president of Tanzania's semi-autonomous islands of Zanzibar will be buried on Thursday at his home village in Pemba Island. Saif Sharif Hamad, popularly known as Maalim Saif, died on Wednesday, nearly 3 weeks after his party said he had contracted COVID-19. He is the most prominent political figure in Tanzania who have openly declared that he had contracted COVID-19. Prayers have been held in Dar es Salaam, where he died while undergoing treatment. Former Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete was in attendance. Many people in Zanzibar are still in disbelief, and on social media he has been described as a visionary leader who brought unity to the island. In his home village, many shops remained closed for the better part of Wednesday after news broke of his death. Transport services were overwhelmed as people rushed to travel to Pemba, that is the other person for the DRC, to pay their last respect. And then we go to Somalia, where the government of Somalia has suspended public gatherings, citing a rise in COVID-19 cases. The move is likely to affect Friday's planned protest against the political uncertainty in the country after President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo's term ended before elections were held. The Council of Ministers met on Wednesday and was briefed by the Health Minister on the coronavirus situation in the country. The Ministry of Health has recorded more positive cases and fatalities this month. The minister has directed that all non-essential workers work from home to reduce the spread of virus. Movement between regions and unnecessary travel will also be limited. That is according to the new directive. Somalia has so far recorded 5,500 cases of coronavirus, including 172 deaths. And then we go to Uganda, where the United Nations has condemned an attack by the Ugandan security forces that left several journalists injured. They were reporting on the opposition member of parliament and musician Bobby Wine as he was highlighting allegations of human rights abuses in the country. The police said security personnel were dispersing an uncontrolled crowd and said it was unfortunate that journalists were injured. It comes amid growing concern at the ongoing clampdown against opposition following President Yoweri Museveni's victory in the disputed election. Video shows members of the Ugandan military police chasing after journalists and beating them with long sticks. Some reporters were left with serious injuries, including bleeding cuts to the head. The brutal incident took place right outside the United Nations Human Rights Office in the capital, Kampala. Quite interesting. They were chasing after uncontrollable, crowds. That is what the officials there in Uganda are saying. But they could see very well these are people with cameras and microphones, and they just went ahead to attack them. That has to be condemned by the strongest term possible, and I would like to see African Union coming out and protecting the freedom of, journalists in this continent, because that is quite unbecoming. I'm not surprised, because that is what has been happening in Uganda, but that is just quite something else. And still staying with Uganda, and Uganda's opposition turned politician Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has threatened to withdraw a poll petition from the country's Supreme Court, citing bias and frustration. Uganda's Supreme Court on Tuesday rejected Wine's additional 120 affidavits, claiming the documents were filed late after February 14th deadline. Bobi Wine later addressed his supporters at his party's office in Kampala, threatening to withdraw the case if such frustrations persist. This is the second blow in less than 2 weeks. Last week, Wine filed a petition to amend the suit. He wanted 3 of the judges to recuse themselves from the case, citing their close ties to President Yoweri Museveni. Bobi Wine claimed that Chief Justice Owiny Ndolo was President Museveni's lawyer in 2006. While Justice Mike Chibita was Mr. Museveni's private secretary in legal affairs, while Justice Ezekiel Muhanguzi is a relative of Security Minister Eli Tumwine, according to a local media now. Meanwhile, Bobi Wine released a list of at least 243 people he claims were abducted by the government. Very well. And then we go to South Sudan, where disarmament forces may be compelled to disarm civilian amidst increased communal fighting in the country. The South Sudanese People's Defense Forces has said the statement comes as the cycle of violence and revenge attacks have increased among communities in the country, particularly in Warab, Lakes, Unity, Jonglei, and Central Equatoria states. And on Sunday, more than 10 people were killed in Lakes State. In August last year, clashes occurred between disarmament forces and armed youth in Tonj, left about 127 people dead. Despite several disarmament exercises, local youth, locally referred as Gelweng, or defenders of the cattle, are still in possession of small firearms. And then we go to the latest spat between Sudan and Ethiopia. And Sudan on Wednesday recalled its ambassador to Ethiopia, the foreign ministry said, as tensions between the two countries run high over a border region and Addis Ababa controversial Blue Nile Dam. He said the envoy will return to his post after the completion of consultations without elaborating of the nature of the discussions. Khartoum move comes amid rising tensions with Addis Ababa over the Al-Fashaka border region, where Ethiopian farmers cultivate fertile land claimed by Sudan. The two neighboring countries have been trading accusations of violence in the area and territorial violations. On Sunday, Khartoum claimed that Ethiopia had allowed its troops to enter Sudanese territory is an act of aggression and regrettable escalation. Last month, Ethiopia alleged that Sudanese forces were pushing further into the border region. It's quite interesting because, remember, they still have a that is the latest. Sorry, that is the latest there from across the continent. And if there's any other news you need for me to know about, please just share with me on the comment section. And I see some of viewers from, Uganda. I'd love to know what is the latest from Uganda. I'd love to know what is the latest from Nigeria. Increased insecurity. We see now the Minister of Security there coming out and saying, you know what? Sometimes these killers, these abductors, these terrorists, they come to you, they attack you, but they don't have, a lot of ammunition like that. So you can also defend yourself. Can you imagine? It is the government's responsibility to ensure that its people are safe. And so Nigerian government has failed to do that. And so you're telling people to go defend themselves against Boko Haram. Are you out of your mind? What are you telling us? That the government is unable? Of course, it has demonstrated it is unable. And if you're unable to provide security to your people, you have no business, President Buhari, still sitting there and calling yourself a president, because you have failed in your mandate to protect the lives and the property of people there in Nigeria. And this is something that has been happening, and so I just don't get it. And I just don't get it that a part of Nigeria is under is under distraction, and the other part just sits pretty and assumes, you know what, it's all good. That is their problem. That problem will move very closer, so before it affects the whole of the country, you all should stand up, and say no to this insecurity that has continued to escalate in Nigeria, and you all should call your president to account. President Buhari deserves to explain to Nigerians why the insecurity has really escalated in that country, and what he has done to try to contain Boko Haram, which he has done very little. And so he owes it to the people of Nigeria to tell them what is really going on. But that aside, the Ugandan case. Very well. So now Bobby Wine met with journalists. He was trying to give his position. As we know, he filed a case in the court there challenging President Museveni's win, and he tried to come up with new affidavits that was rejected by the court. I remember last week, was it on Monday, he tried to file for additional, to change the initial petition and add more, information to that. That was also rejected because they said it was a time barred. And so now he's saying he's very frustrated, and the court seems to be very biased. And it's very interesting because initially, remember last week also, he had filed and asked for three Supreme Court judges to recuse themselves because of their close ties to President Yoweri Museveni. And one of Bobby Wine claims that Chief Justice Owin Dolo was President Museveni's lawyer in 2006. So obviously, if that is the truth, and it is, then this Chief Justice has no business sitting and listening to this case. Obviously, there's a conflict of interest there. Who do you think he will vote to support? His former client, who obviously I'm sure even rewarded him for a job well done. Now he is the Chief Justice of the Republic of Uganda. So Bobby Wine has grounds for that. So he was President Museveni's lawyer in 2006, while another Justice, Mike Chibita, was Mr. Museveni's private secretary on legal affairs. So obviously they do have a history together and very close ties there. While Justice Ezekiel Muhanguzi is a relative of Security Minister Eli Tumwine, that is according to the local media there. So here's the thing. So part of what Bobby Wine said on Tuesday, let me just read a bit of what he said yesterday. No, not yesterday. Today is what? Thursday. On Tuesday. We have been collecting evidence and more is still coming, but the Supreme Court has rejected 250 affidavits we filed yesterday, that is on the 15th of February on Monday, much as hearing of the petition hasn't started. We want to put the Supreme Court on notice that if this persists, we're not going to be part of this mockery. The next step is to take the matter to the public courts. Bobby Wine, when you say public court, that will land you back to house arrest. Do you understand that? Because when you say you're going to take it to public court, what do you mean? You're calling for protest, you're calling for your supporters and people of Uganda to come and reject it, and they should, but I'm not sure President Museveni will take that very kindly. And so Bobby Wine is threatening to withdraw from all this exercise because he's saying this is a mockery, and it's like just rubber stamping. It's just a formality, so he's not really expecting much to come out of it, judging from how far this much, the Supreme Court has handled this case. I don't know, what is your thoughts on Bobby Wine threatening to withdraw from this process, this petition that he had filed with the Supreme Court there in Uganda? Let me know what you think about that. And as you speak, the United Nations has come out and condemned the attack by the Ugandan security forces that left several journalists injured. They were reporting on the opposition member of parliament and musician Bobby Wine as he was highlighting allegations of human rights abuses in the country, and it comes amid growing concern at the ongoing clampdown against the opposition following President Museveni's contested win earlier in the month. And some report, no, not in the month, the elections happened in January. Was it on 14th? I think it's over a month now, right? Some reporters were left with serious injuries, including bleeding cuts to the heads. The brutal incident took place right outside the United Nations Human Rights Office. It's quite something there. United Nations Human Rights Office, they don't even care that we are standing outside, that we are brutalizing Ugandans outside, the United Nations Human Rights Office, the security agency in Uganda, do not care about that. So after they were asked, why are you doing this? They're saying, what we were doing is we were just chasing out people, an uncontrolled crowd. We were getting rid of uncontrolled crowd, and we were trying to disperse them. These were journalists who had gone there for a press conference. So I don't know. Journalists in Uganda have become uncontrolled crowd. I'm not sure what this security personnel meant by that. So I think when they started inquiring and Bobi Wine started spitting out some information that perhaps the government was uncomfortable with, I'm sure that is they decided to distract that meeting there. So just let me know this idea that Bobi Wine, Bobi Wine wants now to resign, not to resign, but to remove himself from this petition that he has filed, because he's saying that the judges involved in this case, first of all, he's been facing a lot of bias and frustration when he's bringing evidence, is not being accepted. So this is the second time he's faced some setbacks, as I had mentioned there earlier. But also he's saying there are some judges who were involved in this case that has had relationships before in one capacity or the other with President Yoweri Museveni. And so there is an issue of conflict of interest. That is just common sense. And in the best practices, okay, fine. I know best practices and Uganda. You cannot even say that in the same sentence. It's not. But it just in the name of decency and what's right and good. If this Chief Justice, Owen Dolo, was President Museveni's lawyer in 2006, what business does he have to sit there and lead a team that is listening to a case and waiting to determine between his former boss, who I'm sure also appointed him to that position, with Bobi Wine? Already it's not a level ground there, and any person with a sane mind and some level of, I will not say even dignity, but some words are just too stretched when you're discussing the Ugandans' situation. But any person who is just sane, that is something they would have done a long time ago, because it does not make any sense. You cannot be there and purport to want to come out with a ruling that is free and fair and deliver justice when your former client that gave you the job that you have right now, is part of the person being accused in this case, because we know Bobi Wine filed, and the respondents were 3: the Electoral Commission in Uganda, President Museveni, who I think he has 9 charges against him, 9 issues against him. Electoral Commission, I think they're 11, and also the Attorney General of the Republic of Uganda. So they're all correspondents in this. They're all defendants in this case, right? And so the Chief Justice is a former lawyer, represented President Museveni in 2006 when also his election was petitioned. So how do you expect justice from already a very biased situation? And also Bobi Wine says that Justice Mike Chibita was Mr. Museveni's private secretary on legal affairs. So he has worked, and this is his former boss. So what do you expect? That he will rule against his former boss, who has also given him a job? That is impossible. And Justice Ezekiel Mcha-Ngozi is a relative of Security Minister Eli Tumwine. So I don't know, of course. So maybe it's through Eli Tumwine that he got to be appointed on that position. So there's a lot of conflict of interest. And in the name of what's good and just, I think Bobi Wine has some grounds in demanding for these judges to recuse themselves because of the conflict of interest. That is just common sense. And in the best practices in the world, that is something that you would expect should happen. But as I said, best practices and common sense, and in Uganda and its politics, those things just don't gel very well. So Let's see how that has happened. Of course, these judges have not really resigned or recused themselves. Not really resigned, but recused themselves because of the conflict of interest that is quite obvious there. But also I think of the grave concern, Bobby Wine released a list of around 243 people he says have been abducted by the government. Their people cannot account for, do not know their whereabouts, have been picked from their homes. This is something that I see a lot of you from Uganda mentioning here and talking about, and this is something that, the world should demand. President Museveni, I know you've come out and you've bragged about this capacity, and I think in one of the interviews you've done a couple of days ago, you said when it comes to violence, nobody can, defeat NRM. I think it's violent by even the name itself, National Resistance Movement. Over 35 years later, and you're still resisting what? So even the name of the party, President Museveni, is just violent by its just nature. So you've come out, and rightfully so, and said, when it comes to violence, NRM, nobody can defeat it. And you've proved it by your words. You've proved it by the action of your government and your security forces. And so it's just quite unfortunate that this has become normal, and you listen to it, you hear stories from Uganda, and people are like, that is just Uganda. No, 243 people cannot be accounted for among many more others who have been abducted. That should not be business as usual. And we have a responsibility, especially in the continent, to come out and speak and raise our voices, because that should not be treated as normal, especially if these abductions are being done by the government itself. That is quite unfortunate. Jam Kach is saying, this is truly total madness for Buhari to call upon ordinary citizens to rise up and defend themselves against armed civilians. I think you're referring to that story that I read from Nigeria, where the Nigerian Defense Minister Bashir Magashi has come out and urged. That is the defense minister. That is the Minister of Defense. I can imagine the Minister of Defense in Kenya holding a press conference and telling us, now listen, this is what I want you to do. I'm urging all the citizens to be alert in the wake of rising attacks on villages by armed gangs. I think until that point, I agree. And then he continues to say that the people should not be cowards when confronted by gunmen who at times carry few ammunitions. And we know, he says at times, because we know a lot of times the Boko Haram, the bandits from the north, and these are the people who commit these atrocities in Nigeria, they come in fully armed. Yeah, they have very sophisticated weaponry. Even the Nigerian, army said, we cannot fight against Boko Haram. Their weapons are more superior than ours. And now you're telling the citizens to go and fight against these people who even the army of your country is afraid of. What kind of sense is that, Mr. Minister? This is enough to have you step down. This is an admission that as a government you have failed, and because you have failed, then you have no business sitting there and calling yourself a government. Mr. Minister of Defense there, Bashir Magashi, in Nigeria, you've just failed. The government of Buhari, I've said here before and I'll say it again, has failed in its mandate to protect its people and the country that is Nigeria, and that is unfortunate. And the violence and the extremist activities by Boko Haram that has been fomented and have been allowed to grow in Nigeria is not only affecting Nigeria, but a lot of other countries across that are the part of Africa. And before you know it, they will be linking up with the Al-Shabaab here in East Africa, which, also is a menace. So let's not look at it as if this is just a problem from that part. This is a problem for all of us, and that's why we should all be wary. And when you see a whole government minister coming out and making such nonsensical statements, it's quite aloof. It does not understand. When you hear eyewitnesses and stories from the people who have been able to, survive these attacks, it's harrowing. Those people don't come with a gun and one bullet. They come with a whole machine gun, rifles, and bullets and all that, and a lot of it. And so it's just do your job. go look for President Buhari, sit down and start strategizing on how best you can, protect the people of Nigeria. So I have to go. I really have to go right now. So thank you so much. I'll probably come back much later. Thank you so much for watching Nong Chu. It's been a while. Thank you so much for tuning in. I was just reading some also worrying information there from the Anglophone region of Cameroon. And I don't know, President Paul Biya also is just one another let down leader in this continent. I cannot even begin to tell you. It's just sad what is happening in some of the African countries and the kind of leadership we have. And so we do have a responsibility to speak up and speak out very loudly because, if we don't, then who will? Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. I am Miriam Ogutu. Good afternoon.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.